What would you do if your own parents treated your home, your hard work, and even your life as nothing more than a convenience for everyone else? What if one Christmas you overheard the truth that you weren't family, but just free labor and free space? They planned to give my bedroom to distant relatives while I slept on the couch in my own house. This is the story of how I turned the lock on my door and everything changed. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the courage to say no. My name is Emily Dawson, and at 34 years old, I thought I had finally figured out my place in this world. I work as a loan officer at Rivergate Community Bank here in Cedar Hills, Ohio. Not the most glamorous job, but it pays well enough that I could afford my own little house on Maple Street. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a small backyard where I grow tomatoes in the summer. It's modest, but it's mine. Or at least, I thought it was. Growing up as the youngest of 3 children, I learned early that my role was to accommodate. My mother, Patricia, became a widow when Dad died of a heart attack 10 years ago. Since then, she's mastered the art of emotional manipulation, wielding her grief like a weapon whenever anyone dares to challenge her wishes. "Your father would be so disappointed," she'd say, her voice breaking at just the right moment to make you feel like the world's worst daughter. My sister Monica is 38, with 2 kids, Jaden, who's 7, and little Sophia, who just turned 4. Monica works part-time at a dental office, and somehow that translates to me being her on-call babysitter. "Family helps family," she always says, usually while dropping her kids at my door on a Saturday morning without warning. Her husband, Brad, is perpetually overwhelmed with his job selling insurance, which apparently exempts him from all parenting duties on weekends. Then there's Daniel, my older brother. At 40, he's got his own chaotic household, a wife named Karen who believes in free-range parenting, which means their 3 boys run wild like feral animals. Whenever they visit from Columbus, they treat my house like a Holiday Inn. Daniel always assumes my guest room is available for his family, never asking, just announcing their arrival like it's a royal decree. I've been the family's safety net for so long that I can't remember when it started. Maybe it was after Dad died, when Mom needed someone to lean on and I was the only one without kids or a spouse to use as an excuse. Or maybe it goes back further, to when I was in high school and Monica would volunteer my time to help with her college move, or when Daniel would eat my lunch money savings because he forgot his wallet. The thing about being the reliable one is that people stop seeing you as a person with your own needs. You become a function, a service, a convenience. My house isn't my sanctuary, it's overflow parking for family gatherings. My savings aren't my security, they're the emergency fund when Monica's car breaks down or when Mom's roof needs repairs. My time isn't my own, it's automatically allocated to whoever shouts loudest about their crisis of the week. I've furnished my home with care, each piece chosen deliberately. The queen-size bed in my room has a memory foam mattress that took me 6 months to save for. The dresser is a vintage piece I restored myself, spending weekends sanding and staining until it gleamed. My bedroom is painted a soft sage green, with white curtains that filter the morning light just right. It's the one space in this world that feels entirely mine, where I can close the door and pretend, just for a moment, that I'm not everybody's backup plan. But even that illusion is regularly shattered. Mom keeps boxes of her seasonal decorations in my closet. Monica stores her kids' outgrown clothes in my guest room, just until she has time to sort through them. It's been 2 years. Daniel once used my garage for his boat for an entire summer without asking, then acted hurt when I suggested he might want to contribute to my increased utility bills. They all have keys to my house, not because I gave them willingly, but because Mom insisted it was for emergencies, and fighting her on it would have triggered a family-wide guilt campaign that I didn't have the energy to withstand. The emergencies, it turns out, include needing a quiet place to wrap Christmas presents, borrowing my vacuum cleaner without asking, or using my kitchen to prep food for parties I'm not even hosting. I know what you're thinking. Why don't I just say no? But you don't understand the weight of being the good daughter in a family that's already experienced loss. Every boundary feels like betrayal. Every no is met with, "After everything we've done for you," or "Family is all we have." They've weaponized love, turned it into obligation, and I've been paying that debt for so long that I'd forgotten I never actually owed it in the first place. But this year was supposed to be different. This year, I had Ryan. I met Ryan Fletcher 3 months ago when he came into the bank to set up a business account for his IT consulting firm. He was different from the men I usually encountered, confident without being arrogant, successful without needing to broadcast it. When he asked me to coffee after our third meeting, I almost said no out of habit. I wasn't used to putting myself first, but something about his genuine smile made me want to try. Ryan saw me in ways my family never had. He noticed when I was tired, asked about my dreams, listened when I talked about wanting to travel to Italy someday. He didn't see me as someone to lean on, but as someone to stand beside. For the first time in years, I felt like I was more than just a supporting character in everyone else's story. As Christmas approached, I felt a flutter of excitement I hadn't experienced since childhood. I wanted to introduce Ryan to my family properly, to show them that I was building something of my own. Maybe if they saw me as part of a couple, they'd finally start treating me like an adult with my own life rather than the family utility player. I threw myself into preparations with unusual enthusiasm. I spent my lunch breaks shopping for the perfect gifts: a cashmere scarf for Mom in her favorite purple, a new tablet for Monica's kids, a bottle of aged bourbon for Daniel. I planned an elaborate Christmas dinner menu, researching recipes for honey-glazed ham and homemade cranberry sauce. I even bought new throw pillows for the living room and hung string lights around the windows to create that magical holiday ambiance. "You're going all out," Ryan observed one evening as he watched me test my third attempt at gingerbread cookies. We were in my kitchen, and flour dusted every surface despite my best efforts to contain it. "I want everything to be perfect," I admitted, carefully piping icing onto a gingerbread man. "I want them to see that I can host, that I'm not just the person who shows up to help with their events." Ryan wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. "You know you don't have to prove anything to anyone, right?" "I know," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. "But this feels important. Like maybe if I do Christmas right, if I show them I'm in a relationship and capable of creating my own traditions, they'll start seeing me differently." He kissed my temple gently. "I just don't want you wearing yourself out trying to earn something you should already have their respect." I leaned back into his embrace, allowing myself a moment of comfort. Ryan's apartment was across town, a sleek, modern space that felt like him, organized, purposeful. No wasted space or energy. Sometimes I envied how clear his boundaries were with his own family. They lived in Michigan, and while they were close, they respected his independence. They called before visiting, asked rather than assumed, and treated his home like his castle rather than communal property. "Tell me about your family's Christmas traditions," I said, changing the subject. "Pretty standard stuff," he replied. "Christmas Eve service at church, opening one present that night, always pajamas, then the full celebration on Christmas morning. Mom makes cinnamon rolls from scratch, Dad reads from Luke, and my sister inevitably cries at least once from holiday overwhelm." "That sounds lovely," I said, and meant it. It sounded organized, predictable, respectful. "What about yours?" he asked. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Chaos. Mom shows up whenever, usually with a list of things that need to be done. Monica drops her kids off so she can go last-minute shopping. Daniel's family descends like locusts, eating everything and leaving a mess. And I'm in the kitchen, cooking, cleaning, managing it all while everyone else celebrates. "Not this year," Ryan said firmly. "This year, I'll be there to help. We're a team." I turned in his arms to face him. "You don't know what you're signing up for." "I'm signing up for you," he said simply. "The rest is just background noise." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this Christmas would be different, that having Ryan by my side would somehow shift the family dynamic. I'd already told Mom about him, enduring her 20 questions about his job, his income, his family background, his intentions. She'd seemed pleased, or at least satisfied that I wasn't going to die alone, as she'd not so subtly worried about in the past. I spent the next week finalizing preparations, determined to make this the Christmas that changed everything. I deep cleaned the house, bought a real tree for the first time instead of using my artificial one, and even hung a wreath on the front door. My guest room was pristine, with fresh sheets and new towels, ready for whoever might need it, though I secretly hoped everyone would just go home at the end of the night. Looking back now, I can see how naive I was, thinking that a perfectly cooked ham and some twinkling lights could somehow rewrite decades of family dynamics. But hope is a dangerous thing when you're desperate to be seen. It makes you believe that this time will be different, that this time they'll notice you're not just the help your family too. The revelation came on December 20th, a Thursday afternoon when I left work early to pick up the special ordered ham from the butcher. Mom had called that morning, asking me to stop by her house to discuss Christmas logistics. I should have known something was off by the formal way she phrased it, but I was too focused on my mental checklist to pay attention to warning signs. I arrived at Mom's house around 3:30 in the afternoon, using my key to let myself in as I always did. The house still smelled like Dad's cologne somehow, even after all these years, mixed with Mom's lavender candles and the perpetual scent of coffee. I heard voices from the kitchen and followed them, expecting to find Mom alone, maybe on the phone. Instead, I found a war council. Mom sat at the kitchen table with Monica and Daniel, papers spread before them like battle plans. They were so engrossed in their discussion that they didn't hear me enter. I stopped in the doorway, something in their conspiratorial posture making me hesitate. "The Texans will need somewhere comfortable," Mom was saying, referring to her cousin Judith's family. "The hotel prices during Christmas week are outrageous." "They can have Emily's room," Monica said without hesitation, like she was assigning seats at a restaurant. "She's got that nice queen bed, and the bathroom is right across the hall." My blood turned to ice water in my veins. "Perfect," Daniel agreed, leaning back in his chair. "And my kids can use her guest room. Karen and I will take the pull-out in the basement, but the boys need a real bed or they'll be monsters on Christmas morning. Emily can sleep on her own couch," Mom added matter-of-factly, making a note on her paper. "She's young, her back can handle it." I stood frozen, watching them carve up my house like a turkey. They weren't asking. They weren't even considering asking. My home, my sanctuary, my carefully prepared Christmas, none of it belonged to me in their minds. "What about that boyfriend she mentioned?" Monica asked, and I held my breath. Mom waved dismissively. "If he's serious about her, he won't mind the chaos. It's a good test, actually. See if he can handle our family." "Besides," Daniel laughed, "Emily's used to it. She's always been the flexible one." "Thank God," Monica agreed. "Can you imagine if she was difficult about things like this with no husband or kids? She really should be the one making accommodations for those of us with real responsibilities." Real responsibilities. As if my mortgage wasn't real. As if my job wasn't real. As if my life wasn't real. "The house is basically the family's anyway," Mom continued. "We all helped her get it." My mind reeled. Helped. They meant the time Mom gave me $100 toward moving expenses and never let me forget it. Or when Daniel borrowed my car for a month when his was in the shop and called it helping me keep the battery charged. Or Monica's contribution of leftover paint from her renovation that I didn't even use. "She won't mind," Mom said with the confidence of someone who'd never bothered to ask. "Emily never complains. She understands family comes first." "Dad would be proud of how she steps up," Daniel added, invoking our father's ghost like a stamp of approval on their plans. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burst into the room and flip their table, scatter their papers, demand to know when I became the family doormat. But I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by the casual cruelty of it all, the thoughtless way they dismissed my autonomy. "Just make sure someone tells her about the arrangements," Monica said, checking her phone. "I need to get going. Brad's working late, and the kids need dinner." "I'll text her later," Mom promised. "Oh, and remind her she needs to stock up on breakfast food for everyone and maybe some toys to keep the little ones occupied. They were assigning me homework for my own invasion. I backed away slowly, my socked feet silent on the hallway carpet. I made it to the front door and slipped out, easing it closed behind me. I sat in my car for 5 minutes, hands shaking, before I could trust myself to drive. The hurt was a physical thing, sitting on my chest like a boulder. Every breath felt labored around it. They hadn't even pretended to consider my feelings. I wasn't a daughter or a sister to them, I was infrastructure. I was the road they drove on to get to their destination, never considering that roads could close. I drove home in a fog, their words echoing in my head. No husband or kids. The flexible one. She never complains. Each phrase was a small wound, and together they bled me dry. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat staring at my house, bought with my down payment, my mortgage payments, my maintenance and repairs. The Christmas lights I'd hung twinkled mockingly in the growing dusk. The wreath on the door looked like a welcome sign for an invasion. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Emily, dear. Small change of plans for Christmas. Family from Texas coming. We'll need your help with sleeping arrangements. Call me tonight. Love you. Love you. The words felt like acid on an open wound. I walked into my house, and stood in my bedroom doorway. My sage green walls, my carefully chosen furniture, my sanctuary. I imagined Cousin Judith's teenagers sprawled across my bed, their dirty suitcases on my restored dresser, their chaos in my carefully ordered space. That's when something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped into place, like a lock clicking shut. They wanted to use my room. They'd have to get through the door first. I didn't call Mom back that night. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine, the good stuff I'd been saving for Christmas dinner, and sat in my living room, letting the anger wash over me in waves. Each wave brought a memory missing my college roommate's wedding because Monica needed an emergency babysitter, canceling a date because Mom's sink was leaking, and only I knew how to deal with the plumber, giving up my spot in a yoga retreat because Daniel needed someone to house sit while his family went to Disney World, a trip I wasn't invited on. Naturally. Ryan came over around 8 that evening, taking one look at my face and immediately pulling me into his arms. What happened? He asked, and I told him everything. The overheard conversation, the casual dismissal of my existence, the text message acting like I should be grateful for the opportunity to give up my bed. They're not getting into my bedroom, I said, my voice hard with determination I didn't know I possessed. Not this time. Good for you, Ryan said, but then added gently, though maybe you should talk to them first. Set boundaries. I laughed bitterly. You don't understand. Boundaries in my family are like speed limits, suggestions that everyone ignores. The only way to make them stick is to make them physical. That's when the plan began to form. It was petty, maybe even vindictive, but it was also necessary. If they wanted to treat me like a hotel, then I would implement hotel policies. The next morning, I called in sick to work the first dishonest thing I'd done in years, but I needed the time. I drove to Home Depot and found myself in the door lock aisle, running my fingers over the electronic keypad locks I'd only seen in magazines. The sales associate, a kid named Tommy with an infectious enthusiasm for home security, showed me a model with a keypad that could be programmed with multiple codes. But here's the best part, Tommy said, demonstrating on the display model. You can set temporary codes and delete them anytime from your phone. You can also lock and unlock it remotely. So I could, theoretically, lock someone out even if they had a key to the doorknob. I asked. Absolutely. Once this is installed, regular keys are useless. You need the code, or you're not getting in. I bought it on the spot, along with a new doorknob for good measure. $400 that should have gone toward Christmas presents, but this was a gift to myself. Installing it took most of the afternoon. I'm not particularly handy, but fury is apparently an excellent motivator. I watched 3 YouTube tutorials, stripped 2 screws, swore enough to make a sailor blush, But by 4 o'clock, I had a functioning electronic lock on my bedroom door. I stood back and admired my work. The keypad glowed softly, a small rebellion in brushed nickel. I programmed my code Dad's birthday because he would have understood and listened to the satisfying click of the deadbolt sliding home. Next came the room itself. I packed my jewelry box, important documents, and anything else I couldn't bear to lose into a large suitcase and drove it to Ryan's apartment. He gave me a spare key to his place. "Just in case things escalate," he said, and I loved him for not trying to talk me out of my plan. Back home, I removed all the family photos from my dresser, the ones that might guilt me into backing down. I cleared the bathroom of my personal items, leaving only basic necessities. If they managed to break in somehow, they'd find a sterile space, devoid of the personal touches that made it mine. Then came the pièce de résistance. I went to my computer and designed a sign, "Notice. This room is private property. No admittance without express permission from the owner. Trespassers will be asked to leave immediately. Thank you for respecting personal boundaries." Management. I printed it on cardstock and laminated it at the office supply store, savoring the confused look from the clerk. This wasn't revenge, I told myself. This was self-preservation. Monica called that evening while I was preparing dinner a simple salad since my appetite had vanished along with my family loyalty. "Mom says you haven't called her back about Christmas," she said without preamble. "I've been busy," I replied, chopping carrots with perhaps more force than necessary. "Well, it's all settled anyway. The Texans get your room, and you'll be on the couch. Mom wants you to wash your sheets with that lavender detergent Judith likes." "Interesting," I said neutrally. "Also, can you pick up some of those organic fruit pouches for the kids? And maybe some coloring books. You know how they get when they're bored." "Anything else?" I asked, my voice deceptively calm. "Actually, yes. We're thinking of doing Christmas Eve dinner at your place since it's bigger than Mom's apartment. Nothing fancy, just something light before the big day." "Of course you are," I muttered. "What? Nothing. I need to go." "Emily, is everything okay? You sound weird." "Everything's perfect," I said. "Absolutely perfect." After I hung up, I stood in my kitchen, looking around at the space I'd worked so hard to create. They wanted to take this from me too, turn my home into their venue, my life into their convenience. But not this time. I texted Ryan, "Want to go away for New Year's somewhere warm." His response was immediate, "Book it, my treat." At least when the explosion happened, I'd have somewhere to escape to. Because there would be an explosion, I was done being the family doormat who never complained. This Christmas, they were going to learn that even the most flexible people have a breaking point, and mine had a digital lock on it. The next 4 days were a masterclass in deception. I should have been an actress. The way I played the part of the dutiful daughter preparing for family Christmas. When Mom called with her endless lists, I made appropriate affirming noises. When Monica texted about dietary restrictions for her kids, I responded with thumbs-up emojis. When Daniel sent a group message about arriving early on Christmas Eve, I replied, "Can't wait." Meanwhile, I was orchestrating my own private revolution. I went grocery shopping as requested, but with surgical precision, I bought exactly 8 place settings worth of food, the number of people I'd actually invited, not the 15-plus crowd my family was expecting. 1 small ham, not the massive one Mom had suggested. 1 pie, not 4. Enough wine for a civilized dinner, not a family rager. Playing it close, aren't we? The cashier at Kroger commented, looking at my modest Christmas grocery haul. "Just keeping it intimate this year," I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Ryan watched my preparations with a mixture of concern and admiration. He'd come over every evening after work, finding me in various stages of controlled chaos wrapping presents with aggressive precision, cleaning already spotless surfaces, testing and retesting the lock on my bedroom door. "You know they're going to lose their minds," he said on December 23rd, watching me arrange the presents under the tree. Each tag was written in my finest handwriting, names spelled out in full, No room for assumptions about who got what. Let them, I said, adjusting a bow that was already perfect. I've lost mine plenty of times for their convenience. The family group chat was buzzing with excitement about Christmas. Cousin Judith from Texas had sent a message thanking me in advance for being so accommodating. Monica had shared a photo of the matching Christmas pajamas she'd bought for her kids to wear at Aunt Emily's Christmas sleepover. Mom had posted 3 times about how blessed she was to have such a giving daughter. Each message was another nail in the coffin of my guilt. On Christmas Eve afternoon, I did one final walkthrough of my house. The living room was tastefully decorated, the tree lights twinkling softly. The dining room table was set for 8 and only 8. The kitchen was organized for the modest meal I'd prepared, and my bedroom door stood firmly locked, the laminated sign now affixed to it with double-sided tape that would definitely leave a mark when removed. I stood before that door and entered my code one last time, stepping into my sanctuary. Everything was exactly as I wanted it, my space, my rules, my boundaries made physical. I sat on my bed and allowed myself one moment of doubt. Was I really going to do this? Was I ready for the nuclear fallout that would follow? Then I remembered Monica's words, real responsibilities. I remembered Mom's dismissive wave, she never complains. I remembered Daniel's laugh. She's always been the flexible one. Yes, I was ready. I locked the door behind me and went to get dressed for dinner. I chose my outfit carefully, a deep green dress that brought out my eyes, the pearl earrings Dad had given me for my college graduation, the watch Ryan had surprised me with last month. I looked like myself, but elevated, like someone who deserved respect. Ryan arrived at 5:30, looking handsome in his charcoal sweater and dark jeans. He'd brought a bouquet of white roses. "For the hostess," he said with a wink that made me actually smile for the first time in days. "You look beautiful," he said, pulling me close. "And terrifying. It's a powerful combination." "Good," I said. "That's exactly what I was going for." Mom called at 6:15. "Where are you? We're all heading over soon." "I'm home, Mom. Dinner's at 7, remember." "Yes, but we need to get everyone settled first. The Texans are exhausted from their drive." "I'm sure they are," I said neutrally. "See you at 7. I hung up before she could respond. Monica texted at 6:30. "Kids are melting down. Coming early. Have snacks ready." I didn't respond. Daniel's text came at 6:45. "At your door in 5 with the whole crew. Hope you have beer." I had exactly 4 beers. He was bringing 6 people. Ryan squeezed my hand. "Remember, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just doing something different." "They're going to hate me," I said, surprised to find I didn't care as much as I thought I would. "They're going to hate that they can't control you," he corrected. "That's not the same thing." At 6:50, I heard the first car pull into my driveway, then another, and another. The invasion had begun, but this time, the castle was ready. I smoothed my dress, checked my lipstick in the hallway mirror, and put my hand on the doorknob. On the other side was my family, ready to steamroll over my boundaries like they always had. But tonight was different. Tonight, I had a lock on my door and steel in my spine. "Ready?" Ryan asked. "Ready," I said, and opened the door to face the storm. The chaos was immediate. They flooded in like water through a broken dam, Monica with her 2 kids already in their Christmas pajamas, Daniel's family with their 3 boys who immediately began touching everything, Mom directing traffic like an air marshal, and behind them all, Cousin Judith's family from Texas, looking road-weary and entitled. Emily. Judith embraced me like we were close, though I hadn't seen her in 5 years. "Thank you so much for this. Patricia said you have the most comfortable guest room." Aunt Emmy. Monica's kids shrieked, running past me toward the living room. "Can we open presents now? Where should I put these?" Daniel's wife, Karen, asked, holding 2 suitcases and looking expectantly down my hallway. "Beer's in the fridge." "Right." Daniel was already heading to my kitchen. "Everyone, please," I said. raising my voice above the din. Let's start with introductions. This is Ryan, my boyfriend. The chaos paused for exactly 3 seconds while they registered Ryan's presence, then resumed at double speed. Oh, how nice, Mom said dismissively before turning to Judith. Let me show you Emily's room. You must be exhausted. This was it, the moment of truth. Mom marched down the hallway with Judith in tow, me following despite their clear expectation that I'd stay behind and manage the chaos. She reached for my bedroom doorknob and turned. Nothing. She tried again, frowning. Emily, your door is stuck. No, it's locked, I said calmly. Mom turned to me with the expression of someone who'd heard words but couldn't process their meaning. What do you mean? Locked. I mean it's locked, with a lock. That locks. By now, Daniel had noticed the commotion and wandered over, beer already in hand, one of my 4 precious bottles. Just unlock it then, he said, like I was being deliberately obtuse. No. The word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Emily. Mom's voice took on that dangerous tone I knew so well, the one that used to make me cave immediately. The Johnsons need somewhere to sleep. They've driven all the way from Texas. There's a Holiday Inn about 3 miles down the road. They have a lovely continental breakfast. Judith's face was turning red. Patricia, you said? Emily's just being difficult, Mom interrupted, then noticed the sign on my door. She leaned in to read it, her lips moving silently. What is this? It's pretty self-explanatory, I said. Monica had joined us now, Sophia on her hip. What's going on? Your sister has locked her bedroom door, Mom announced like she was reporting a crime. So unlock it, Monica said, shifting Sophia to her other hip. The kids need somewhere to nap. The couch is available, I said pleasantly. The one you all decided I should sleep on in my own home. The hallway went silent. Ryan appeared beside me, his hand finding the small of my back in silent support. What are you talking about? Daniel asked, but his eyes shifted away from mine. He knew exactly what I was talking about. I'm talking about your little planning session at Mom's house. The one where you divided up my home like a Thanksgiving turkey. My room for the Texans, my guest room for your kids, my couch for me. You were eavesdropping, Monica accused. I was arriving for a meeting Mom requested, but please, let's focus on my behavior and not yours. That's the family way, isn't it? Emily Dawn Dawson, Mom started, invoking my full name like a curse. This is not how family behaves. You're right, I agreed. Family asks. Family considers each other's feelings. Family doesn't assume that the single one without kids is just a resource to be exploited. Exploited? Daniel laughed incredulously. That's dramatic, even for you. Is it? When was the last time any of you asked if I wanted to host Christmas? When was the last time you checked if I was okay with giving up my bed? When was the last time you even thanked me for any of it? We're family, Mom said, as if that explained everything. We shouldn't have to ask. And I shouldn't have to lock my bedroom door to maintain boundaries, but here we are. Judith's teenage sons were peering around the corner now, sensing drama worthy of their attention. Karen was trying to corral her boys, who were using the tension as cover to raid my kitchen. This is ridiculous, Monica spat. Just open the door. Emily, stop being selfish. Selfish, I repeated, tasting the word. Interesting choice. Tell me, Monica, when you drop your kids at my house without warning, is that selfish? When Daniel stores his boat in my garage without asking, is that selfish? When Mom volunteers my house for family gatherings without consulting me, is that selfish? That's different, Monica protested. How? She opened her mouth, then closed it, unable to articulate why her needs always trumped mine. You know what? Judith interrupted, her Texas drawl sharp with indignation. We don't need this. Come on, kids. We're going to a hotel. Judith, wait, Mom pleaded, but the Texans were already gathering their things, teenage sons looking relieved to escape the dysfunction. "Patricia, you promised us a place to stay," Judith said coldly. "You said Emily wouldn't mind. Clearly, you don't know your own daughter very well." The door slammed behind them, and I felt a vindictive little thrill. One down. Mom turned on me, tears already forming in her eyes, her ultimate weapon. "How could you embarrass me like this? The same way you embarrassed me by giving away my room without asking. Your father would be—" "Don't." I cut her off, my voice sharp enough to draw blood. "Don't you dare use Dad against me. He's the one who taught me that a person's home is their sanctuary. He would understand exactly what I'm doing." The tears dried up instantly, replaced by cold fury. "If that's how you feel, perhaps we should all leave." "Perhaps you should." I agreed. But they didn't leave. Of course they didn't. That would have required them to admit defeat, and my family never retreated when they could double down instead. We moved to the dining room in tense silence, the kind that made every small sound the clink of silverware, the rustle of napkins feel like thunder. I served dinner with mechanical precision: one small ham, already sliced, one bowl of mashed potatoes, green beans, rolls, and a single pie waiting on the kitchen counter. The table was set for 8, and with the Texans gone, we fit perfectly. The kids, however, had to eat at the coffee table I'd hastily covered with a tablecloth. "This is all?" Daniel asked, surveying the modest spread. "This is dinner for the people I invited," I replied, taking my seat next to Ryan. "But you knew," Monica started. "I knew what you all planned without consulting me." "Yes." Mom sat at the head of the table, my table, as if by divine right. She said grace through pinched lips, managing to make even gratitude sound like an accusation. The prayer went on longer than usual, with pointed mentions of family unity and generous hearts that felt like barbs aimed directly at me. "Amen," we muttered collectively, and the most uncomfortable meal of my life began. Ryan tried valiantly to make conversation, asking Daniel about his work, complimenting Monica on her children's behavior, a generous lie. But every attempt fell flat against the wall of family resentment. The kids, sensing the adult tension, began acting out. Jaden spilled juice on my carpet. Sophia had a meltdown over the lack of mac and cheese. Daniel's boys started sword fighting with my good silverware. "Boys, stop," Karen said weakly, but they ignored her, as usual. "Let them be," Daniel said. "It's Christmas. They're excited." One of them knocked over a vase not expensive, but one I'd bought at an art fair with my first bonus. It shattered against the hardwood floor. "Oops," the boy said, not looking sorry at all. I stood up calmly, went to the kitchen, and returned with a broom and dustpan. As I cleaned up the pieces, I said conversationally, "That was $40. I accept Cash App or Venmo." Daniel laughed. "You're joking." "Do I look like I'm joking?" "It was an accident," Karen protested. "And accidents have consequences. $40. "Emily, for God's sake," Mom interjected. "It's Christmas." "Yes, it is. And what a gift it would be to have my property respected and replaced when damaged." The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan pulled out his phone. "I can cover it." "No," I said firmly. "Daniel's child broke it. Daniel can pay for it." Daniel's face was turning purple. "This is insane. You're insane." "I'm setting boundaries. If that seems insane to you, that says more about our family dynamics than it does about my mental health." Monica stood abruptly. "Kids, get your coats. We're leaving." "But Mommy, presents—" Jaden whined. "No presents," Monica snapped, shooting me a look of pure venom. "Aunt Emily has decided to ruin Christmas." "Aunt Emily has decided to demand basic respect," I corrected. "There's a difference." As Monica wrestled her kids into their coats, Mom stood as well. "I think it's best if we all go. Clearly, Emily needs some time to think about what family really means." "I know exactly what family means," I said, standing to face her. I've been the family emergency fund, the family hotel, the family daycare, the family storage unit, and the family doormat for 34 years. I know more about what this family means than anyone. You're selfish, Mom said, her voice cold. Selfish and ungrateful. I'm done, I corrected. There's a difference. Daniel was already heading for the door, Karen hurrying their boys along. He turned back at the threshold. You know what your problem is, Emily. You're going to die alone. Maybe, I agreed. But at least I'll die in my own bed, not on my couch because I gave my room away to people who don't even appreciate it. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Mom was the last to leave, gathering her purse and coat with theatrical dignity. At the door, she paused. I hope you're happy. I'm getting there, I said honestly. She left without another word, and suddenly my house was quiet. Beautifully, peacefully quiet. The Christmas tree lights twinkled serenely. The remaining food sat on the table, untouched by chaos. My bedroom door remained locked, my sanctuary intact. Ryan found me standing in the dining room, staring at the abandoned feast. That was, he started, brutal. I finished. I was going to say brave. I turned to him, tears finally coming now that the battle was over. They hate me. They hate that they can't control you anymore, he said, pulling me into his arms. That's not the same as hating you. Did I go too far? The sign on the door, demanding payment for the vase. Did they go too far when they planned to take over your house without asking? I leaned into his chest, breathing in his cologne, grounding myself in his steady presence. What if Daniel's right? What if I do die alone? First of all, you're not alone. I'm right here. Second, being alone is better than being surrounded by people who don't respect you. We stood there for a long moment, holding each other in the wreckage of Christmas dinner. Then Ryan pulled back slightly, a small smile on his face. You know what, let's eat. This ham smells amazing, and I'm starving. So we did. We sat at my dining room table, just the two of us, and had the most peaceful Christmas dinner I'd ever experienced. We talked and laughed, drank the good wine, and ate pie straight from the tin. No one criticized my cooking. No one demanded I serve them. No one treated my home like their personal property. It was perfect. The aftermath came swiftly. By 10 that evening, the family group chat had exploded. Monica had removed me. Daniel had blocked me on social media. Mom had posted a cryptic Facebook status about learning who your real family is during the holidays that garnered dozens of sympathetic comments from relatives who had no idea what actually happened. But I didn't care. For the first time in my adult life, I had spent Christmas evening in my own home, on my own terms. Ryan and I watched Christmas movies on my couch, the one they'd designated as my bed, and I fell asleep with my head on his shoulder, feeling safer than I had in years. The next morning, Christmas Day, I woke to sunlight streaming through my windows and the smell of coffee. Ryan was in the kitchen, making pancakes. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Mom and a text from an unknown number that turned out to be Cousin Judith. Your mother is mortified, but honestly, good for you. She had no right to promise what wasn't hers to give. At noon, Ryan and I exchanged gifts. He'd gotten me a first edition of my favorite novel. I'd given him a watch I'd saved for months to afford. We spent the day in blessed peace, cooking together, dancing to Christmas music in the kitchen, making love in my still-locked bedroom just because I could. The calls continued for 3 days. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone had an opinion about my Christmas tantrum. But something interesting happened. For every relative who condemned me, another reached out privately to share their own stories of being taken advantage of having their boundaries trampled, of being designated the family doormat because they were single, childless, or simply too nice to say no. New Year's Eve found Ryan and me on a beach in Florida, watching fireworks over the ocean. I'd turned off my phone 2 days earlier and felt lighter for it. The family would still be there when I got back, but the dynamics had shifted. The earth had moved beneath our feet, and we could never go back to the way things were. "Any resolutions?" Ryan asked as midnight approached. "Just one," I said. "To never unlock that bedroom door for anyone who doesn't respect that it's mine to lock." He kissed me as the clock struck 12, and I thought about the lock on my door. How such a simple thing had changed everything. Boundaries aren't walls, I realized. They're doors, and you get to decide who has the key. 3 weeks later, Monica called. Her voice was different, smaller. "The kids miss you," she said. "I miss them too," I admitted. "Maybe we could meet for coffee, just us." It was a start, a small one, but still, Mom took longer. 2 months of silence before she showed up at my door on a random Tuesday evening, looking older than I remembered. "I need to get something from your room," she said. "My mother's jewelry box. I left it in your closet last year." I looked at her for a long moment, then pulled out my phone and unlocked the bedroom door remotely. 5 minutes, I said. She emerged with the box and stood awkwardly in my hallway. "The lock. It's very high-tech." "It needs to be," I said simply. She nodded slowly. "Your father. He would have hated this. The fighting. I mean, not the lock. He always said you were the strongest one of all of us. Said you just didn't know it yet. It was the closest to an apology I'd ever get. And somehow, it was enough. Daniel never came around. His pride was too wounded, his worldview too shaken by the idea that the family structure he'd benefited from was unfair. But Karen started texting me occasionally, usually late at night. "How did you do it? Where did you find the courage? Do you think it's too late for me to set boundaries?" I always answered honestly, "It's never too late to demand respect. It's never wrong to protect your space. And sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to lock the door and refuse to open it until people learn to knock." The lock remains on my bedroom door to this day. I've changed the code twice, once when I thought Mom might have seen me enter it, and once just because I could. Ryan moved in 6 months later, and I gave him his own code without hesitation. He'd earned it by respecting my boundaries from the start. Every Christmas now, we host dinner. We send proper invitations with RSVP requests. We plan the menu for exactly the number of confirmed guests, and everyone knows the rules. This is our home, not a hotel, our space, not communal property, our life, not an extension of theirs. And my bedroom door. It stays locked during parties. Not because I don't trust my family. Trust has been slowly rebuilding, but because the lock has become a symbol. It represents the moment I stopped being the family doormat and started being a person whose needs mattered just as much as everyone else's. Some might say I went too far that Christmas Eve, that I should have tried talking first, setting boundaries gently, working toward compromise. But they didn't spend 34 years being slowly erased, one sacrifice at a time. They didn't hear their own family planning to steal their sanctuary without a second thought. They didn't know what it felt like to be loved only for what you could provide, not for who you were. The lock on my door isn't about keeping family out. It's about letting myself into my own life, my own choices, my own space. And that key, it's mine alone to share. Because sometimes the best gift you can give yourself for Christmas is permission to say no, to lock the door, to demand better, to believe you deserve more than the couch in your own home. And sometimes, just sometimes, when you stop being the family doormat, you finally become a family member worth respecting. The door is locked, the boundary is set, and for the first time in my life, I'm home. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious, where are you listening from? Please share in the comments below so we can connect with fellow listeners from around the world. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts about setting boundaries with family. Have you ever had to stand up to relatives who took advantage of your kindness? I'd love to hear your experiences. Remember, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is protect your own peace.